As a species, we're becoming less smart and more reliant on AI. And I think that's going to change our brain behavior and the way that we interact with people. And I think, it comes at a detriment to society, us thinking less and doing less with our brain because, you see even now where people are just chatting to ChatGPT, what happens when it can pick things up and do things on your behalf and completely agentic. We
Right.
we kind of get into a weird world where humans are kind of like zombie-like in a way, with their.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Business Owner Podcast with your host Shubert. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smart Business Owner Podcast. And this week we have Jake Holmes with us. Jake is a software engineer and AI specialist. So, Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, of course. Now, Jake, Jake lives in Great Britain, I believe.
Yeah, Oxfordshire in the UK, so
All
quite
right,
nice
all
place.
right. So you're global now. You're not just in the UK. So, I'm based in
Absolutely.
Florida, so that's awesome. So, uh, we're here to talk about AI. AI is, I would say, one of the biggest story in our lifestyle. I mean, lifetime. I have not seen something as big since the dot-com boom in the late '90s, early 2000. So everybody want to talk about AI. Everybody want to talk about Chat GPT. Recently was DeepSeek in China. But before we get into the AI conversation, I know that your background is in engineering, software engineering. So why don't you tell us your story? How did you go from being a software engineer into, prompt, AI prompting, or people calling you and what to do and how to run AI? Because I know they're very close, but that they are not quite the same. So give us the backstory as far as your journey from software engineering to an AI specialist.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm the founder of Grow Fast, where we help traditional businesses cut through the noise and adapt to the new era of AI and technology within businesses. We focus mainly on helping businesses to like identify and surface the larger efficiencies that they can gain through using AI and technology and things like that. And I started originally in tech, oh, 10 years ago, 10 or so years ago, where I built a platform for personal trainers to manage their clients better with creating like meal plans and work it plans and stuff like that. It was very early days with AI. Like it was really quite bad back then, and we tried to use it to generate some things within the app, but ultimately it didn't work very well because the technology wasn't there yet. And as part of that, I learned how to code. So I originally got a quote. I remember it quite well. I got a quote for a developer to program me this piece of software that I wanted to build in partnership with quite a successful personal trainer. And the quotes came back at 10 to 15K, which actually isn't a lot to build a platform, but it's more than a 16-year-old can afford, right?
Right.
So I thought, how can it be? I'll learn how to code. So I did. We built the platform. It was amazing. And that led me on to a startup that was building software for the NHS here in the UK, where I led a team to launch a car sharing, kind of a vehicle sharing platform within the public sector, that rolled out. And then after that, I moved on to having a data consultancy with a business partner. And that kind of culminated to create a SaaS product out of the back of it. It was an AI system for a mortgage firm, and it worked. We were meant to take it kind of nationwide and countrywide, but it worked so well for the investor that invested in the product that he kind of didn't want it going anywhere else, so he bought it outright. And since then, it's kind of led to loads of conversations with business owners and business leaders that have asked me to come in and kind of help them with their strategy, and not only their strategy, but to kind of think about where they can use AI best in their business and where they shouldn't use AI and where they should definitely use people for. So I support mainly like startups all the way to regulators in industries here in the UK at the moment with audits, fractional CTO roles, strategic guidance, and focusing on where AI truly moves the needle. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you're working with the regulators in the UK. Did I hear that correctly?
There's one regulator that I work with, yeah, quite a small regulator, but they they do think AI is the future, and they know that they kind of need to get in with using it now to make sure that I guess they don't need to be ahead of anywhere else, but they're kind of using their money in such a way that's going to benefit them in the future.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, AI is it's the hottest topic. I work in financial industries, and you cannot turn on the news, not seeing something AI related. It could be a company is spending thousands of dollars on AI, or it could be another company not spending enough on AI. Now, my questions to you is, what are some of the thing that you see one company does where you can, hey, you know what, and how can you be so unreasonable to spend that amount of money on AI, or how come you're not spending enough to integrate AI in your company? Basically, the two extreme part of the AI spending that you see, not spending enough and spending too much.
I try not to get into spending a lot of money or a substantial amount of money on AI because I don't think it's necessary and I don't think it turns the needle as much as other things. But I see it quite a lot with some larger organizations where they're trying to develop their own proprietary model or fine tuning
Right.
one of ChatGPT's models to use their data and be fine tuned to them in a way that no one else can be. And the costs add up there real quick. And they kind of get to a point where they're spending so much money on fine tuning these models that they've got this kind of like false fallacy that they think that they're going to get massive returns by fine
Right.
tuning models and investing this much into AI that's kind of specific and research focused and not in actually how do we use AI to make the business better, more efficient, increase the value, free up the people's time. And instead they're focused on kind of like research and the real cutting edge that isn't going to make that much difference really. And the other end of the spectrum, where you say you're not investing in AI enough. I mean, 9 out of 10 companies say that they're AI first or whatever that you see on LinkedIn and all these other sites, and they're kind of not, but their marketing is just posing them as that they are. And then the next level down from that is that they're not even interested in using AI at all. Like they're happy with what they've got. And I think we might get into this a bit later, but as you start to increase your investment in AI at this current stage, we're still very early on, in my opinion, but I still think
Right.
it's underhyped in some sectors. Where if you invest it now and you bring it into your organization and you start to change and start to move with the times and you invest early, we're kind of on a hockey stick trajectory with AI as it self improves and it gets better. And you as an organization can get better at changing and integrating and adapting to the future, that you're kind of on this curve that is a parabola, not a parabola, a bit of a hockey stick graph.
Right.
The problem is if you ignore this until it's 5, 6 years down the line, your competitors are on this hockey stick and now you can't ever meet them or keep up with them because your rate of change is so much slower than theirs because they started now and not in 5 years' time. So I think we're in quite a turning point in technology and AI and the advancements on how we do things. And there was a fascinating research paper that came out last month from MIT,
Mm-hmm.
one of your universities, so that 95% of AI projects fail. They fail to deliver a significant ROI to the company, or they lose money.
Right.
And the reason why this happens is because companies focus more on algorithms and very technical details, and they don't spend enough time researching or being strategic or intentional with how they implement AI into the organization. And if you're doing too much research and focusing on algorithms and not planning where it's going to turn the needle, where it's going to make a big difference in the organization, you kind of just chase shiny objects, don't you? It's the same with anything in business. If you've got no direction, no plan, no strategy, you just chase the next shiny thing that comes around, and that's not
Right.
necessarily ever going to move the needle. You're just like a dog chasing 100 balls. Maybe you'll bring one back, but probably get overwhelmed and none of them will stick.
Now, would you say that this problem is because not enough market research was done, because before they go ahead and then implement those AI? Because sometimes a company may offering something to the public and the public have no interest in that particular product. Do you think that those companies that have lost money in implementing AI or focusing on the algorithm without taking the the pulse of the audience, of the target market. Do you think that's the reason why they ended up losing money?
Yeah, I think you're talking about AI companies here in particular, and it's quite a big thing in tech to create a product in search of a problem. They're creating this thing without talking to people, and the market or the world doesn't even know they want it yet. So that's kind of
Right.
where I think they get lost a lot of the time. But in more traditional organizations, when they're starting to implement AI or where they're trying to bring in a new AI product offering into their business, it's not only that, but it's also they don't look internally and they don't look into them as an organization and think about what processes in particular are going to really benefit from adding in AI or technology or adding in like a new piece of software in. They just kind of do it and hope and pray that it works and not necessarily do it with purpose. And you know, this is why the projects fail. And it's really kind of telling that all of these well, they're like ERP system providers or like Zero and all of
Mm-hmm.
these big companies have got AI add-ons now, but nobody really uses them and nobody really knows what impact they have on their business. And then you're paying $50 per seat per month for an extra AI add-on that you don't even know or know that you want that you need.
Right.
So your costs go up, and then your perception of the success is like, okay, well, I'm paying more for something that's not really serving a purpose. It's just AI. So they get to a point where you you don't see the success because it wasn't done with any intention. It was just done because you saw a shiny object and chased it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those entrepreneurs, they may have gone in this direction because of what they've seen or other entrepreneurs have done. For example, if you take Steve Jobs, when he came up with the idea of the iPad and also the iPhone, there was nothing like it on the market. And from his point of view, Steve Jobs, that was, is that people, the consumers sometimes don't know what they really want until an entrepreneur comes in and an innovator comes in with an idea, and then they say, oh, that's exactly what we are looking for. I think that's probably why these companies are losing money, because sometimes not every idea is a good idea. And probably, those ideas probably did not need to be implemented. I was watching an interview with the founder of OpenAI, where he stated that we might be in a bubble when it comes to AI spending, because he realized that so many companies are spending so much into AI. He think that we might be, but he's not quite sure yet. What is your point of view when it comes to way overspending? And I'm not talking about the smaller players. I'm talking about the Amazon of the world, the Facebook, because recently there was a big frenzy fight between Facebook and Amazon and OpenAI acquiring talent at millions and billions of dollars in employee contracts or contracted contracts. So what's your what's
I think talent comes at a price, doesn't it? And we're in a world where footballers also cost, especially in the UK. I don't know what the NFL's like for. I'm talking about soccer, British soccer, right? They all come at a price, and these great minds are worth quite a lot of money because of the software and the products that they can produce. As for a bubble, I don't think that we're in a bubble just yet, because if you're an AI company, you don't necessarily have a market valuation that supersedes where you probably should be if you were just a tech company 5 years ago. Whereas in the .com boom, where there was quite a significant bubble, it's like if you had a .com domain, then you're suddenly X amount ranked X amount higher than you would be otherwise. So I don't think we're there just yet in a bubble, and I certainly don't think it'll pop if we are in a bubble. I think we'll just ride out this wave. But I do think the is quite it's quite comical in a way, where they're getting $100 million sign-on bonuses for
yeah.
these machine learning engineers and AI researchers. It's completely fascinating, and then you could go back, you could take that all the way back to the start with. Is the market cap of these companies just too large, and do they have too much money to play with that they're just burning it all, really, on
Yeah.
these researchers? Goes back to companies' market cap and things like that. But in smaller companies, I personally, at least here in the UK and some US businesses that I've had conversations with, don't think that we're investing anywhere near enough on the future of the business that you're involved with, especially in the AI space. I think everyone's talking about it, and you're right, it's the hot topic at the moment, but
Yes.
the investment into the business, and you look at the actual investment, it's not huge. And I mean, only a few players are kind of capitalizing on that. And the fact is, the investment at the moment is going to be high because the setup cost of creating a new product or integrating something agentic into the business is expensive.
Yeah.
But you're going to see that return on investment, because there always is, if it's planned and strategic and intentional, over the next year or so. And then to add things onto that is going to be ever easier. So I think the investment in AI is overall not where it needs to be yet with businesses. And I think we can go kind of a step further and not, when you talk about AI, you're talking about the model providers and the GPU chip like Nvidia and Meta
Right.
and Google and Amazon and Oracle to some extent, and Seed Dance, who are creating video generating models. But the average American or UK business just isn't investing.
Yeah. It's just wild, the thing that's been going on with AI and the way people are going about it. If you were to guess, or if you were to give your opinion, what would you say is the one thing that nobody's talking about when it comes to AI that they should be talking about?
I think the most interesting thing for me in AI at the moment is the speed and the pace that it's getting developed at. Google, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but about a week ago, Google released Gemini 2.5 Flash image preview, which is known as Google Nano Banana, which is amazing at editing images. And we're at a place now where 3 weeks ago, when that model wasn't released, a piece of software that could have $1 billion market cap just couldn't be created. And everyone that's listening to this has the ability to create the next $1 billion company, the next unicorn. And I
Wow.
think with the market moving so fast, and this kind of goes back to my point to existing business owners, you've got an existing customer base in your business, you just don't have a product that's viral yet. You might be a service-based business, you might be doing 200-300K a year, whatever, 1 million, 2 million a year.
Right.
But if you can attach a market offering or a new product offering onto your business that has that virality tick, and it fits in with your existing customer base and existing kind of platform, you know, you're off to the races. You can create the next Facebook or whatever, because the market is moving this fast. And we're at a point in history where, technology has never moved this fast. And if we're going back to when the .com industry was coming, when Facebook, Google were
Right.
first being created, we look back at them now and we're like, who would have thought to create a search engine would yield a market cap of what it's got now? And that's where we're going to be in 10, 20 years time with AI. Like, why didn't we jump on that opportunity earlier? That would be the question that people ask themselves. And
Yeah.
they'll ask themselves, and they'll kick themselves even more if they're a business that's doing that already and has the money and the funds to invest in AI and build a new product offering that they can attach onto their business, but they choose not to do it now.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, speaking of this, what would you say one industry that would be totally messed up if they choose not to invest in AI? If one thing would come to mind, what would you say it is?
You're not going to like me, Shubert. I think it's going to be financial services and finance,
If
because
they
a
don't,
lot of it. Pardon?
so if they don't adopt AI, adapt to AI adoption, you think that would be financial services? So my industry.
Yeah, I think your industry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's very analytical, and things are done with a lot of thought and process and planning and kind of getting all the dots together. And it's only a matter of time until, maybe AI can get 70% of the way there at the moment, right? And not 100% of the way there. But how can you change your business, and how can you be so intentional with AI that you can get 70% of the way there now, with the future being that instead of, in 5 years' time, you have people working in the business, you've just got directors that are selling stuff, selling your product, your service, I don't know what your investment services, whatever. And
Right.
everything behind the scenes is run by agents and agentic workflows. And maybe you need one or two extra staff, sure, to manage them. But,
Right.
processing, manipulating data and kind of getting to the point where you get company records from states. I don't know how it works in America, but you get company records from states and you're trying to get to a valuation that you think that you would be willing to invest at. all of that research and all of the deep research and the analytical work that goes on behind the scenes can be done by AI, if not now, in a year's time. So, you can really get to the point where you're pinpointing yourself and your focus on generating more revenue for the business in a way that AI can't. And for me, that's a very big focus for me in my process, is when I first go into a business and look at a sector or an industry or a job function, the first thing that we do is work out where the human value lies in that role. And this is
Gotcha.
really, really important, because if you don't identify where the human value lies, like in sales, for example, the human value probably lies in creating like a really bespoke email to someone, not creating AI generated slop to just spam out to thousands of people.
Right.
Once you identify where the human value is in a process and don't automate that, everything that doesn't have human value, the customer doesn't care if it's done by a human or not, automate, because that's how you have to do things. You don't want to get to a point where you're automating the things that made you different from your competitors, because then you get in a race to the bottom, and ultimately that doesn't end up well for anyone else, because you end up kind of screwing yourself a little bit. And it comes back to doing everything with intent.
So that was going to be my next segue when it comes to, people love to say that AI is going to take our jobs. It's going to destroy creativity and all that sci-fi apocalypse stuff. Do you think those people thinking that way is legit, or do you think it's just Hollywood try to scare, the rest of the world?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting conversation, and I think, it's very deep, because it affects a lot of people. But in my opinion, I don't I don't think we'll get to a point where we don't need humans. And I say that because of what I just said. Excuse me. Where I
Uh-huh.
think humans have value in business that relies on human connection and human intervention, and us being people and personable, and my me talking to you right now, I don't think we're getting to a world where people don't want to listen to that, and they like the kind of idiosyncrasies of people talking and the way that human connections work, because as a species we value relationships over anything else, right? We're
Right.
a pack mentality essentially, and to go all the way to have a kind of a universal income scheme, or something like that, where humans don't work and AI takes over the world, I just don't see that happening. I mean, sure, there's going to be an option for businesses to become fully AI, sure, but will they choose to do that? I think startups are always a big thing, right? We're going to always have innovation and startups coming to market, but there's always price points where human intervention kind of increases at each price point, where you could have, like, websites are a big thing now, right? Where you have fully AI generated websites, fully AI generated apps, but they come at such a
Right.
low price point. But then you don't have the reliability, or they might not be as secure, or you don't have anyone to pinpoint the blame to when something goes
Right.
wrong, fix things. So I think there will become more options to buy things at a lower price point that are completely AI. And as we kind of go up the price points, there'll be more and more human intervention. And the best thing that I can kind of relate that to now is, artisanal coffee shops, where they kind of, their USP is that it's like artisan coffee made by artisans. That's where I think we're going to get to with business. A human business is going to be kind of artisanal, experts doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the talk on the street is that AGI gonna come around,
Yeah.
artificial general intelligence. That's what they've been working on for the last year. And as I said, Sam Altman talking about it, Wang, the founder of NVIDIA, is talking about. Everybody's talking about it. If you were to bet, I mean, I'm pretty sure that clip probably gonna generate a lot of comments online. But if you were to bet your own money, what would you
Mm.
say in the next 5 years? What part of our lives will be completely flipped upside down? Uh, that is going to be totally because of AI.
I think as a species, we're becoming less smart and more reliant on AI. And I think that's going to change our brain behavior and the way that we interact with people. And I think, it comes at a detriment to society, us thinking less and doing less with our brain, because, you see even now where people are just chatting to ChatGPT, what happens when it can be can pick things up and do things on your behalf and completely agentic,
Right.
we kind of get into a weird world where humans are kind of like zombie-like in a way, with their reliance on technology and AI in the future. As for what I think is going to be completely flipped upside down, I think content creation is going to be quite a big thing in the future. I kind of would like to see how it goes because I've got two differing opinions on this. I think one, the younger generation that are coming through are going to consume a lot more AI generated content, and it's going to be less easy to spot it coming out the better it gets, because that's just how it is. It's meant to be like real life. So, we're going to get to a point where AI generated content is really hard to spot and hard to use, so that these factories of generating AI content are going to become a thing. And, we're going to have so much scrollable content that's going to rot our brains a little bit out there in the world. And I think that'll be a shame for the younger generation, because I think, that's going to have a detriment to their brain health and their thinking and thought abilities. But then again, you could argue that people value genuine human creation and content creation. But then there's again the argument that if you can create a prompt for that, then just make AI create it. You come up with a prompt. So,
Right.
we get into a weird spiral of conversation where the answer is kind of AI at the bottom, unless people choose not to and kind of push back against it. I think, we're in a world where AI is going to be a big thing in the future. It is a big thing now, but it's going to become a bigger thing in the future. And unless businesses and people, us as individuals, don't adopt it soon, you're going to start to see businesses go out of business because there's no way to compete, and people that aren't going to be able to land jobs because they can't use AI in a way that other people can. So it's a whole new skill that we're going to have to add to our repertoire of skills that we've already got. It'll be on the job description, like, can you use Microsoft Excel, and can you create an agentic workflow? Or I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's going to be something that employers require you to have, and that experience to be there. And I think it's so interesting now more than ever, because I go into organizations and I try and shape the culture around AI as well.
Right.
Every employee knows their role inside out, back to front. They know what's wrong with it, they know what's good about it, they know what they hate, they know where as a person they add value. So they're kind of the best point of contact to figure out where AI is going to help them the most. When we're in a world where AI can create AI, and we have AGI, or artificial super intelligence, where a person can just create an entity that can do something really, really, really well, they're going to become like the superhumans in a way, that can use this technology to automate some or most of an organization in the right way. It's going to be a fascinating next 5 or 10 years. And it brings me all back to, if you don't start adopting it now, or using it, or playing around with it, or looking at the future and seeing what's coming out and what you can do with it in your internal organization, you're going to be so far behind everyone else. And it's not only internally with efficiencies. We're seeing like companies get 50% more efficient by using AI, especially software companies with Claude Code and Cursor and things like that. That if you don't become 50% more efficient, and they have, that gap is going to become even wider. But if you're not a software company and you can't do anything internally, which I think you can, everyone can do things better internally. If somebody
Right.
tells you they can't, then right. If as a company, I don't know, for example, you're a marketing agency, or you write content, how can you do that in a way where AI can help you the most? Nano Banana is a
Right.
great example. Edit images now in lightning speed. You don't need to have Adobe's platforms to edit images or take things out and augment things in a way that they're not meant to be. And by doing that, suddenly you're not only an expert in your field that can create images and edit images in a way, but now you're using the latest tools to do impossible things, to remove people from images and do, as much as the mind can comprehend or imagine, to create things. It's mind boggling.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned briefly ChatGPT. There are so many different models out there. Of course, ChatGPT was, the first one being out there, and everybody, whenever you say AI, people always refer back to ChatGPT. It's kind of like what happened with Xerox in the 90s. Somebody talking about a photocopy, a copy of something. They usually say, instead of doing, hey, go make a copy, but they would say, just Xerox it. When it comes to different models that you've seen in the industry, what would you say some of the models that you have used that you've seen people are using a lot besides ChatGPT? And what's your go-to models to use when it comes to AI tools that you use?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to give this secret away, Shubert, but I will for the sake of your podcast. You get an exclusive. No, I'm kidding.
Just a little bit.
Like you said, every organization uses ChatGPT. It's just the default. It's what the leaders have heard. They're kind of older generation typically. So whatever they hear from their kids or whatever, when things first come out, they kind of adopt and stick with it and don't change and don't deviate from the first thing that they saw. My go-to model for different things is kind of a different model, right? I play on its strengths quite well so that I can always get the best results.
And
I know
friends.
yeah, exactly. Uh, For text generation and ideation and things like that, my go-to model is Claude 4. I think it's a much better model than ChatGPT, and also because it's trained differently, its writing style isn't the same as ChatGPT. So the eye is less eager to pick up on Claude written content because you're just less used to seeing it everywhere because less people are using it, right? So that kind of gives you a bit of a competitive edge if you're generating text or content or ideas. It's less likely to produce something that people have already seen or you've already heard of, which I think's quite interesting because it goes back to human psychology a little bit of what you see versus what you recognize, which I think is quite interesting. And then for image generation is quite a wild area at the moment. Google, like I said, released Nano Banana, but that tends to be more good at editing images than generating them. ChatGPT is still quite good at generating images. And then for video generation, I know you've got models from ByteDance called Seed Dance from the creators of TikTok, which is very good at video generation and quite cheap actually. You have Kling 2.1, which is a less good model, and then you've got Google VOS 3, which is very expensive and very quite good. It's kind of at the top range in price. You're talking to generate a video maybe $2-3, which is quite expensive for one video. So you really play to their strengths, and if you're generating a lot of videos, maybe you go Seed Dance over VO3 because the cost just doesn't make sense. And what we're seeing with Google at the minute, especially, is where when it's generating images or videos or things like that, it's often blocking content, thinking that it's sensitive in a way that it's kind of hitting their spam filters and then not processing it. So it really depends the type of content that you're trying to create or edit, and if you have the willpower to kind of persevere with getting pushed back when it gets flagged as sensitive. It kind of goes back to how much you're generating again, right? Where if you're generating a lot of content, you'll probably get 20% that's flagged as sensitive for whatever reason that they might flag it for, so that
Right.
you might like Seed Dance or something like that. So to answer your question, for text generation, Claude, image generation, Nano Banana or ChatGPT, and video generation, Seed Dance.
What about marketing and sales? Because if I didn't ask that question, I think a lot of my business owner friends and listeners they will hold that against me. When it comes to marketing and sales, what are some of the best model that you've seen people using?
You know what? I think this is a really contentious point because my opinion with AI and marketing and sales is, I would say, quite controversial within the AI space, as it were. I think it's so easy at the moment in AI to be so inauthentic on such a large scale that you can really annoy quite a lot of people by spamming emails out and cold DMs and all of these top of funnel lead generation things that you can do with AI now, that you can do on such a large scale, but it's so easy for you to hand it off to an AI platform to generate you an email to then send to a prospect. I think people are seeing negative results by using AI. And like I don't know if what we're seeing out there is true at the minute or not, but my personal opinion is that it's probably not a good idea to generate emails or cold outreach or any sort of outreach using AI, because it creates inauthentic kind of content out there, and makes you seem like that you don't know, that you don't care about your customers, which is probably the opposite of what you're trying to intend to do by using these
Right.
personal AI models. You see it all of the time. I don't know how many emails you get from AI
A
AI
lot.
written emails. Yeah, you can see them. It's like I saw on your website that you recently introduced like a bus pass or something like completely random that something's put in there or scraped from a source, a data source from somewhere,
Right.
and then it asks you if you're free for a chat and all of these. It just screams inauthentic. Oh God, I can't speak today. It just that you just can't trust it, and therefore you don't trust the person, you don't trust the organization. So I think by doing sales and generating things on a smaller scale, but being very personal with it, so much so that you stand out from all of the AI generated slop that's out there, I think you're going to do a lot better. And there's an interesting stat as well to partner with this that I saw the other day. And it was that 70% of AI generated emails get through spam filters now, which is quite a lot. So the emails that actually land in your inbox, as a person, our brains have got hardwired to spot AI generated emails and written things so that we just delete them. You see the subject heading and you're like, no, get out my inbox. Like you're not
Right.
what I I wasn't worth your time to write an email to, so you're not worth my time to reply to. That's just who we are as people. So as for sales goes, I think there's a couple of things that you can do that don't touch that, like data enrichment and using products like Clay, although it's very expensive. There's other ways that you can do that by creating agents in an A10 or whatever. But you can enrich your data that you've already got in a way that other people can't by scraping so much data together that you can then use to create a piece of content or an email that could only be written by you, for example. So I think there's different ways that you can use AI, different to what people are doing at the moment, that will end up speeding up your processes, but won't end up having a knock-on effect with your lead generation. Even though you're sending out tons of emails, doesn't mean you're going to get tons of replies back. You're going to get none probably, or very slim margins.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it kind of goes against AI and bullish on AI, but you have to treat people as people and make them feel heard and seen and sell to them as a person.
Well said. Now, some people think that AI, is just chatbots or deepfakes. There are some people that are, speaking against it. For example, if you're thinking about the founder of X, the owner of X or founder of Tesla, Elon, he was against it at the beginning, stating that AI would probably destroy humanity. But now he's for it. I think they have XAI and they have Grok as well. I like Grok. I use Grok sometimes. But what would you say some of the darker side of AI that nobody, was really talking about?
Now we're getting deep. I like it. I think with AI, there's some duality, right? If we can create good, we can create evil with it. And to me, that's quite scary because we place a lot of reliance on these safety measures on the model providers. And as far as I know at the moment, there's no organization out there that checks the safety measures that the model providers have and if they're up to a certain standard because there's no real regulation around it. So we're kind of putting all of our faith and trust in the people that are producing these models ways. I think, you said about the First Amendment before we started the podcast, and, everyone's got a right to free speech, but do we give that right to AI with, thinking whatever question you ask it, it's got to produce something in response. People ask it a question on how to do something dangerously or to, I don't know, do an attack on someone. We don't want the model to then tell the person how to do the attack. It's a quite a dark topic and a very deep one on morality and how much you trust people and the lethality of AI. If it can cure cancer, it can probably create the next cancer.
Right.
We kind of get to a point where are we fighting something that is so much smarter than us, and we go back to AI to try and help us generate a way of stopping a person or a thing doing something. So I think it's a really interesting and deep topic. I think we're yet to see if and when it goes wrong properly what happens.
Things. However, there are few interviews that I've seen a knife could be used to create a good meal for a family, but at the same time, that very same knife can be used to murder someone. So I think it's no different for AI as well. I've seen so many industries coming up with ideas. I even have seen that some, humanoid AI, working in factories. They even have them in the entertainment industry. What's your opinion on those different models that different companies are coming up lately?
Hard. And the trouble is with regulation, and especially over-regulation, then you stifle growth and what companies can do to then become bigger and grow economies and kind of be on the cutting edge of technology because they're worried about regulation. So I think we have to be very careful about how we regulate AI companies. And, you could argue that they shouldn't be regulated, and, we should know where there is a stopping point and when it does become criminal. I think regulation is something that we have to be very cautious of, and Europe especially so, because they're very keen to over-regulate everything. I think it's there's a saying, isn't there, like America innovates, China replicates, and Europe regulates. So
I like that one.
they yeah, I think that's a saying. I could be corrected, but it's about right. Europe just regulates it's just what they do, but they need to kind of not do that. And we're seeing a lot of pushback, at least with American businesses, saying that, you know, we're American, you can't regulate us because we're American. And that's how it should be. And I think that we're seeing in the UK, at least, that there is regulation in place so that innovation is stifled a little bit. And in America, you've got free run because these companies that can raise so much money and so much capital and, run away with it. So I think we could do with a little bit less regulation in AI in the UK and Europe to see how growth and, where it kind of takes us. As for companionship, I think it's a really interesting topic because we're in a loneliness epidemic at the minute where, as a species, we've never been more lonely and never kind of seeked human companionship as much as we have today. So for a person that's on the verge of hurting themselves or in a dark place and AI is available for them to talk to, I think that is a very good thing. But as for replacing people, I don't think it's in a place to replace people, no. So it's quite a fine line. And again, that comes down to human judgment a little bit and human choice, whether we choose to let it into our lives properly and replace people or not. Again, it comes back to the human in the scene too.
Awesome. Well said. Now, Jake, what industries that is your specialty? Do you have an industry in particular that you focus on? And also, uh, what would you say if a business owner is listening to this conversation? What are some of the steps they need to take in order to make sure that they don't fall behind in the AI era?
I don't necessarily narrow myself down too much, but I quite like service-based businesses
Okay.
and also some software businesses that I have quite a high interest in as well. Mainly because with service-based businesses, everything is fairly replicatable and it happens on quite a large scale over various customers doing the kind of same thing over and over again for each customer. It's quite easily repeatable, and often there hasn't been that much innovation in the business. It's just a trend. Maybe it's less true in America. As for what businesses can do today to start with their AI journey, I'd say the best thing that you can do, because I wouldn't get started with choosing add-ons or subscriptions or investing in AI when you don't truly understand as a business where you want to put that focus. So as a business owner, you have to be strategic and intentional on where you put AI into your processes. And that starts with mapping them out and figuring out where the human value lies and having those kind of operating procedures in place so that, it's not just an operating procedure for a person, but then we can use it to train AI models on because you've got all of this new knowledge as an organization that you can use to train the model on or create the system or the workflow, or whatever it is that you're going to put in place to help you succeed even further. And then once you've got that information, then it becomes a whole lot easier to choose where you're going to invest your money and time and resource into, because we all have limited budgets. No matter how big they are, they're always limited.
Right.
So if you can put all of your money on something that you know is pretty certain to have a good ROI on your business, that's a pretty safe bet to me. So it all starts with the planning at the start and being intentional with it. And that you can do without any technological experience. It's just perhaps finding out at what point in the process can AI take hold of that and do it on behalf of the person, or a system can come in, if that makes sense. So, if you're struggling with that, or don't know how to start, or where to start, or what technologies are available, my name is Jake Holmes, and you can find me on LinkedIn. So just drop me a message on there, and I can give you a hand. I know for other podcasts, I do, for the first 3 people that contact me, I'll give them 30 minutes free consulting. So if you're listening and you don't know where to start, just drop me a message and we can run with that. Don't be number 4.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's very helpful because so many business owners need that service, but they don't know, uh, where to start. And, having somebody, you can talk to for free. It's always
I think
helpful.
yeah, I was talking to somebody about this today, actually. I think where AI experts come into businesses, they often come in with a bit of an agenda that the service that they provide, the solution or the moneymaker for them at least, isn't to make the business more efficient, it's to sell an AI workflow or a product or whatever that might look like. And that person isn't completely like unbiased, like they've got an agenda when they come in. And that's where you see people get burnt a little bit with kind of consultants like me or any AI person, because they've got an agenda and I don't. So I ultimately partner with businesses to make them better and more efficient and increase the revenue per person, because to me that's the most important thing. And I don't have something else to sell you, because I don't think that's right to do so. It's like,
Awesome.
yeah, like with any sector, right? When you go into a business with an agenda, then you ultimately want to push them that way, even if it's not right or the fit's not right. And that's where a lot of businesses get things wrong.
Well said, man. Well said, Jack. Before we wrap up, one question I like to ask my guests, especially entrepreneurs like yourself, what would you say that one thing you have learned from a mentor that have led you here?
A mentor. I've had quite a few mentors in my time. I really like having mentors, and I think that having a good selection of mentors in each sector that you're trying to improve in or get away from, or whatever it might be, is a real growth hack, because these people that you're perhaps asking questions to or kind of getting advice from, they've been there and done it and hopefully have been successful, so that they can foresee issues before even you can. And I think for me, like, that's been a big power move, because I have the right people in the right places to bounce ideas off of and to get feedback from. And without them, maybe I wouldn't be in the position that I am today with my business, and I'd be maybe 5, 10 years behind. So the power of having experienced people in your corner that you can trust and ask questions to is really important in my eyes. And
Yeah.
you get them from being authentic and speaking to the right people, and I find being motivated and loving the problems that you solve, and then you attract the right people. So yeah, that's kind of my advice, as it were. Get more mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. Mentors is always welcome. I love mentors as well. Now, to get back up from a setback.
Get back from a setback.
Yeah.
I'm a very positive person. I smile a lot. I come at life with a very positive attitude. So I don't necessarily see things as setbacks, because my mindset is very good. I see everything as a lesson, even if it does set me back in some sort of way, because I'm at that point for a reason. I believe in my path, and I believe my path is predefined by someone above. We have to use these opportunities, even if they are setbacks or not where we want to be, to become a better person and to grow from it. And ultimately, some of the setbacks, I'm sure you've had setbacks in your time. If you didn't have those setbacks that came at that specific time, you wouldn't be here today where you
Yeah.
are talking to me on a podcast, with a successful business. So using the mindset, like knowing that it's happened, or I think everything happens for a reason. I think every setback happens for a
I
reason,
agree.
so that you're there to learn. And if setbacks wouldn't have happened to me, if contracts didn't get signed, that there was often something wrong in the contract or with the person that I was going to sign it with anyway. So looking and reflecting back on setbacks that seemed like setbacks at the time have allowed me to grow and become a better person and entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if I were to ask that, answer that question myself, I usually, I just go take a good night's sleep and then wake up the next day, go to the gym and get a good workout and get back on the horse and you have another
Damn
shot out.
right.
That's so you gotta do. Well, Jake, it's been a fascinating conversation. I mean, I'm sure our audience have learned a ton of adoptions in their businesses. One more time, if people want to get a hold of you, Jake, I know you said that you're going to give them a free 30 minutes consultation. Tell us how they can get a hold of you.
The best way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn, and my name is Jake Holmes.
Awesome. Well, Jake, it was a pleasure having you on the show. But until then, folks, that's all we have for today. See you next week. Bye now. You've been listening to the Smart Business Owner Podcast. See you in the next episode.